Your childhood really struck me. A lot of people have a pivot point that's like, oh, and I got a divorce, drat.
Yeah.
Your childhood was serious.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Sure. So grew up in Boston, Mass. We were, broke, had roaches, welfare, like that kind of thing. My father was an alcoholic and left us. So my mother was left to raise me and my sister, single mother working multiple jobs. So we didn't really have much. Although you wouldn't know that at Christmas time, she made it seem like we were rich. However, I was bullied. I was picked on. I never fit in. I always had like the uncool clothes. So, there's a lot of people that had that story. So that's partly why I don't really care about telling my story. It's like, woe was me. Who cares? Everyone had a tough time, right? Then I was molested for like 4 years in my home. So, when I became a teenager, there was a point that I was homeless. You don't know that these things suck when you're in the middle of them as a kid, because you haven't experienced life, and you haven't experienced like the awesome side of life yet, or what could possibly be. And when everybody around you is kind of living in the same world, you're not like, well, I want to be like them, because social media wasn't around. So there's no one to compare yourself to. So you're just like, well, we all live like this. You don't think like, I want a better life, or this, is a shitty life. So you realize that when you get older and your brain matures and you travel and you meet other people, and then you look back and you're like, wow, that was pretty significant. Or some of the things I did are pretty like impressive as a kid my age to think that way or act that way. For example, while I was being molested throughout those years, and even today, it's not something I carry around with me and I'm upset or broken or trauma or go to therapy over. And I'll get into that in a second. But back then when I was young, I actually would lay in my bed, not like, woe is me. I would wonder like, what happened to that guy that made him need to do this to a little boy, right? Like, why does he do this? What's driving him to do this? What happened to him that now he's fucked up and now has to do this, right? So I was always like kind of empathetic, intuitive, caring. I always listened, paid attention to what people felt, needed, didn't like. And plus, like, another big thing, when you're young and you go through these things and you know how you were made to feel, like unappreciated, unloved, that you don't matter, and you know that how much that makes you feel, shitty, then your job is to now make sure you don't do that to anybody else.
Yeah.
Right? Why would you be the reason somebody else feels the way that you don't like feeling? So that's kind of what I realized really early on too, like getting picked on and bullied. And I knew how I felt. I felt like a loser. I felt like nobody liked me. Then you go home and it's like, yeah, my mom did her job, like to make sure we ate and that we had a house and stuff, like, which is awesome. But there wasn't much like love in the sense of like support, or I love you and hug you and like, you can do this and I got your back. And like, there wasn't that, right? But you don't even realize that's something that exists or that you need until you get older. And you're like, wait a second, I don't even remember my mom saying I love you growing up. You know what I mean? So you're so normalized to what dysfunctional love is that now that's all you know. So that's what you expect and what you keep doing, like your girlfriend or your wife or other people. I was so used to being okay that I went into things, even if I thought they were dangerous, knowing that I'll still just be okay. Because that's how I built myself to be. Yeah, I never really like looked at it like I need to be better at treating myself better, or paying attention to who I'm around, or who I'm going to give my love to, or whose love I'm going to accept.
I had read that when you were 12, you stole your first set of actual turntables and started making music.
Yeah.
It sounds like music was your escape.
Well, I was a lonely kid who didn't have any friends, who felt unloved. So the radio became my best friend. Yeah. So all I did was listen to the radio, and most people listen to music to like dance to or just sing along to. Like, it was educating me. I'm not here to promote music, but I have a song called Radio that one time in an interview, I said, everything I know I learned from my radio. I was like, it's a fucking dope title. Yeah. Right. So I made a song and I just put it out a couple months ago. And the third verse says, remember how you told me I could rule the world, Nas and Lauryn Hill, and introduced me to a queen, Freddie Mercury. Back when all I cared about was getting girls, Beastie Boys. You said, beware of Billie Jean, Michael Jackson. You taught me all about California love, Dre and Pac, with the spirit of a teen, Nirvana. We had big plans, just the two of us, back when it was all a dream, Biggie. You can see right there, even the lyrics that I write are like talking about what I learned and how they educated me about life. I don't know what it is about your face, but you're making me emotional.
Well, because you're making me emotional. Like, first of all, music makes me emotional. You know what I mean? And, you know, like, and we all share that. We all share that. I mean, that's why I'm here with George today. Because like we're all connected in a cool way. And the music is the underlying thing. And the music has gotten us all through so much. I started this podcast because I went through some pretty dark times myself. It was all around. I was part of the rave scene in the 90s. Music it's the foundation of everything for so many of us.
It's the soundtrack of your life. It's the thing that captures the moments. It's the nostalgia that you can recall things that happened to you, good or bad. So like, I don't even know what life would be without music, right?
100%.
I know it's funny. I met a guy one time that never listened to music. I was like, ever? He's like, no. I go, not even happy birthday? Right? Yeah. He was like, I don't listen to the radio. I never bought an album or a CD, or I never listened to music. Can you imagine a life with no music?
No, I think that's sad. And it's not like
I listened to talk radio my whole life. I'm like, what?
I just think that like there's something missing in your soul. Because for me, that's like it plugs something into my soul.
I mean, everything in life, from weddings to birthdays to graduations to every funerals, every single thing has a music component to it. Yeah. It's like the most important thing that infiltrates every single facet of the world. Yeah. So if you understand what people need to feel, then you can make music for anybody. And that even goes for business. If you understand, you're never selling a product, you're never selling a service. You're always selling a feeling. That goes from musicians, it goes from entrepreneurs. If you understand the feeling that needs to be filled, if you understand what people need to feel, what they want to feel, you can sell anything to anybody. And you can write the best songs in the world. It's why Taylor Swift always works. So why is Drake always works? Because he's saying exactly what people are thinking or saying and what's going on. But then you got people out here that are always trying to make businesses that like you just think is cool. Yeah. It's not because the world is saying, I need this, and you're providing it, or songs that you like, I want to talk about how dope I am. Or like that. It's like, who gives a shit? Right. Like make music for people, what they need to survive. I've always made music that people need. Right. So if you go back and listen to the trajectory of my career, even like Akon, Sorry, Blame It On Me. Yeah. When you listen to that record, those lyrics, I literally made the first verse was about my wife. Second was about my mom. Third was about my dad. And I was taking the blame from my dad on behalf of my wife and my mom about the man that I was. And then in the third verse, I'm saying, nah, bro, like the blame's on you. You did this. You caused all this. So like everything that I make is always like, what do people need to feel? And then that's when I go in and create. And that's what my business is too. You're so intuitive as a businessman now, and we're going to get there. I definitely want to get there because I love listening to you as an entrepreneur. But to like kind of close the loop on the early times, I mean, I'd read that like, being like chased by the cops and just, like all of that. Any color that you could add to just like a couple, I'm a storyteller, like this podcast. And just so you know, it doesn't have to be all linear. Like any stories that come to mind about any of those times that were really like wild, that really stick out in your mind. So let me start by saying I was a criminal and I used to rob houses and steal cars and stick people up and stuff when I was young. I'm not proud of it. I never bragged about it. Even when I was coming up in hip hop, I never told anybody what I did, which I probably could have earned stripes by telling people like, I used to do this, but I didn't because I wasn't proud of it. And I also feared that some other lost kid would say, well, look what Clinton Sparks did and he's okay. So I didn't want someone to know that I ended up, because I'm an anomaly from all that I've been through to then become okay in life. But one story. So I was robbing a house with a friend of mine and we were inside the home and then somebody came home. And it was a woman's voice that was like, Michael. And we were like, oh my God, someone's here. So it was a split level ranch, if you know what those houses look like. So we're up in the kitchen at a cast iron pan. And I'm 13 or 14 at this time. I'm like, dude, we're just going to have to fucking bomb her in the head and just run out of the house. Right. And like, it sounds so evil to say that now. I'm totally not proud. And I feel like a piece of shit that I even thought about it back then. But when you're trying to survive, and you're just trying to figure life out. And then when you're a kid, you also don't understand consequences, right? So she ends up walking up the stairs. She's getting closer, our heart's beating. And then she walks by. So I grab her and go. So we run down the stairs, we run out. So you go down, then out the back door. As we're running across the backyard, this big muscle-bound dude who must have been Michael, right? Says, hey. So we're literally on the fence. It was like a fence taller than us. Like we joked up, we're on it. So he's like, hey, runs over. What are you guys doing? So we're on the fence. And now remember, I had to learn the gift of gab to get away from cops, to get away from bullies, to out-talk everybody. So I'm hanging on the fence. I'm like, hey man, we just seen some kids over here that were doing something at your house. We didn't know what was going on. We just came to see what was going on. You guys came home. We got scared, so we ran. Right?
Yeah.
So he goes, well, jump down. We're going to call the cops and see what's going on. The second his body started to move this way, I was gone. Right? My friend, who's a donkey, jumps down and goes with them. Right? So it's Thursday night, 8 p.m. The Cosby Show is about to start. I have a bag of Doritos and a Coca-Cola. Anybody watching us from the 80s knows the Cosby Show was Thursday nights at 8, right? So I'm literally sitting there in the living room by myself. My mother's in her bedroom. All of a sudden, gong, 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 on the door. I look out the window. It's like 8 cops. I run into my mother's room. I go, Mom, the cops are at the door. I don't know what they hear. I didn't do anything wrong. So she goes, well, then open the fucking door then. So I go to open the door. They literally charge right in, got a gun, put me down. And they tear up our entire house looking for stuff. And they take me to jail. And that was the final straw for my mom to get me out of jail. She kept having to deal with that. So she's like, I'm sending you to your father in the suburbs. And that's a whole nother story. But that's one colorful story about, and by the way, that's only one of the times cops barged in and put a gun to my face and had me to the ground. Even though I'm not proud of it, it definitely was another part of my life that gave me a new perspective of the world and people and the feelings that I'm talking about that will give me an angle that somebody else might not be thinking of or have that kind of experience or an understanding of different psychologies and mentalities in people. So because I lived like 20 lives by the time I was 20, I understand so many different people and personalities and cultures and demographics. Like I was a white kid in a black neighborhood, but then I'd get sent to a white Irish Catholic school. And like my mom's friends were all like Puerto Ricans and black, and she had like gays and lesbians living with us. So like to me, I was introduced to everything like at the beginning of my life, which made me now, as I moved on in my life, care and consider everyone. Because to me, everyone mattered. We were all the same. So I didn't have to grow up and be like, I don't understand those people over there. Or why do they do that over there? Like so all the companies that I build, the songs that I make, like everything I've ever done, I think about how do I maximize touching as many people as possible, not for the sake of selling more, but actually impacting or providing value to more.